everyone, welcome back to my channel, or if you are new here, welcome. My name is Ella and I do usually weekly or bi-weekly videos on Wicca and witchcraft. So for today's video I have decided to do a autumn reads kind of video, and it's definitely going to be a bit more chit-chatty, but basically I'm going to be discussing a couple of books or other reads, let's say, for the month of October, or in particular more so for autumn. I do apologize if my voice sounds a little bit off. I woke up today with a sniffy nose. I already took a spoon of manuka honey, but yeah, I guess, you know, it's getting really cold here, so yeah, let's get straight into the video. The first book I have here for autumn that I think is an excellent read to get into is actually Psychic Witch by Matt Oren. And I've talked about this book before and I reviewed it very briefly in a video all about beginner-friendly books, but I also want to mention it for this video. So Psychic Witch is really amazing because of it being very beginner-friendly, but also good for a more advanced person, let's say. So he never at any point talks down to the audience. Like a couple of books, it almost feels like you have to already know certain words for you to be able to understand the book, whereas he actually explains every single term amazingly well without it sounding condescending or like, oh, you should know this. So he's really like writing in an amazing style. Plus he has exercises in his book, and I think these are really great exercises for a beginner to go through. And he also has a couple of different concepts. Now the reason I picked this book as an autumn reads, let's say, is because it fits really well into the theme of Samhain and death and new beginnings and things like that, in particular because divination is very heavily focused in this book, and that is a really great thing to be getting into if you are new and you're starting out in your witchcrafty journey, let's say. And you know, Samhain is an excellent time to be doing divination and to be doing any kind of work with the spirits and such and so on. So he kind of explains a lot of these different concepts in a very understandable way. It's really great for a beginner and for you to actually get into working with spirits or divination. And so he goes over a couple of different concepts which I think are incredibly important, especially for this time, such as protection magic, for example, and cleansing, and anything that may involve purifying yourself before a ritual. So this book will not only be helpful for this time period, but it will also be helpful in general if you are in general starting this, if you're maybe in the Southern Hemisphere and it's not so where you are right now. So this book is really great, but I especially think it's really great for this specific time period. So the second read, I actually won this book in a giveaway, and it is the new book by Lydia Pradas, and it is the complete grimoire, Magical Practices and Spells for Awakening Your Inner Witch. So Lydia Pradas, you may know her Instagram, she's quite big on Instagram actually, and so this is her grimoire. So why this I think is such a great read for autumn is because it's very inclusive. So this book actually has, first of all, it's got, of course, a Samhain section, but it's very once again beginner friendly, as well as having sections specifically for divination and spirit work. So she has dedicated an entire chapter out of this book to divination, and that's quite extensive. So she has, let me see, 9 chapters, and then at the end, of course, the acknowledgements and so on and so forth. So yeah, it's 9 chapters, and 1 chapter is specifically dedicated to divination. And this book is made in such a way that it explains everything in a way that is once again very, very beginner friendly, but at the same time it's very, very good for you to actually be looking into writing these things down into your own Book of Shadows or grimoire. Now, why do I think this is important for this time of the year? Well, Samhain is considered the new year for the witches, and therefore if you have, for example, planned to start a new Book of Shadows or a new grimoire, you know, lots of people like to start a new journal in the new year. So if you are thinking about doing that, then I really highly suggest you to use this book as your correspondence book, let's say. And plus, once again, the entire section on divination is excellently written. She's got a lot of different forms of divination and a lot of different ways that you can connect to the spirit realm. As a matter of fact, she even has an entire chapter called Working with Spirits and Deities, and once again, that's really, 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 really great. Spirit realm is in here as well. So these are really, really nice and easy, let's say, to read kind of steps that you can take, and definitely more for beginners. I do want to quickly mention that, like, it's not in depth per se, it's very, very all-inclusive of all of the different forms and important things for you to learn and read about. But I think it's great because you can kind of tap into everything and properly tap into it without it being too basic, where you are getting yourself into trouble because you don't know how to protect yourself or whatever, because she does go over these things too, but it's not too in-depth where it's an entire book just about that one specific topic, which of course also exists, but you can kind of figure out what's the thing that you are actually drawn to, because there's no point in you buying a book without actually knowing if that's what you like. So this book I think is great because you can kind of read about everything and understand it well enough to know it, but if you are then curious about a specific topic, for example rune magic or scrying with a pendulum, then that's something that you can then specifically research. So definitely a great read, plus it just came out, so obviously this I think is a really, really nice read for you to read during the time of autumn. So the next read that I want to talk about is actually a magazine, and it's called This Witch Magazine, and I actually have an article in the summer edition, but now I'm talking specifically about the Spirit edition. So This Witch Magazine is a magazine by Sofia Delgado, and she is really a credible person, and she created this magazine, and this issue is the Spirit issue, and obviously that is perfect for this season. With a magazine, obviously you have a lot of different topics and you have a lot of different authors, so I think getting your hands on this magazine is first of all an excellent way to learn about that specific topic, or that more like, let's say, that theme of autumn, of Samhain, of the spirit world, of divination. But it's also a great way for you to actually get to know different authors, different contributors, different creators, I don't know how you want to call it, whatever, right? It's a great way for you to get into the field and get to know more in-depth topics as well, because a lot of these topics in this magazine are a little bit more, it's a little bit more advanced in certain ways, but there also is something for everything. So there are cooking recipes, which is great for if you're practicing more kitchen witchcraft. There is more specific divination kind of spirit work, and there also are more beginner friendly, let's say, topics, and in general like tarot spreads. So there's a lot in that one magazine, and that's why I really recommend it. Plus I just really think it's an amazing thing to have a magazine. I wish we had a magazine like that when I first started, so there's a couple now out there actually, but yeah, I like this one in particular, and I do have a discount code, which is Ella. I'll pop it on the screen. I mean, it's just my name, but it'll get you 50%, I know, it'll get you 50% off of the digital issue. It'll get you 50% off on the digital issue. I'll be linking it in the description box below, of course. But yeah, do get your hands on that, especially considering the price. So that is really, really an amazing deal. Yeah, it's just something nice to read when you're just having a rainy day. It's not a full book where you have to dedicate an amount of time to, and you know, school is starting for many people, so you might not necessarily have that much time, but you know, it's just something that you can kind of read throughout the day, throughout the week, and it's just articles, and it's just kind of nice to hear from different authors, from different perspectives even. So the next two books kind of go hand in hand, and that is Ancestry Books. So if you are watching this for preparation for Samhain, then of course you may or may not know that Samhain is very connected to ancestors. So with ancestry, of course, something that I think is a great idea is for you to actually pick up 1 or 2 books about your own ancestry. Maybe, you know, both of your parents' sides, if they have different ancestry, let's say, right? So my mom, for example, has Slavic ancestry, and my father's side has English, Scottish kind of ancestry. So I picked up a book on Slavic witchcraft as well as Slavic fairy tales. So fairy tales in particular is an interesting one because fairy tales, this is not at all technically witchy, but because it's fairy tales, they actually include a lot of folklore and a lot of magic within them that kind of show you the culture as well as the cultural beliefs and norms and practices. So little things, you know, that might go unnoticed. For example, so there are little stories where it's completely just a one-liner where the wizard puts a knife, I think it was a knife, on the doorstep of his enemy. And you know, that's something that it's just one little sentence, but it kind of shows you a practice that was common enough for it to be picked up in a fairy tale and common enough to not be elaborated upon. You know, these are the things that you kind of have to pick apart a little bit. But I think Slavic fairy tales in particular, or not necessarily Slavic, but fairy tales in particular of your specific culture are a great way to get to know your culture a little bit better and to know your history a little bit better and connect therefore to your ancestors. Now the second book is The Slavic Witchcraft by Natasha Helvin, and I believe she is Russian, or she has grown up in a very Russian environment, and she writes, of course, about Slavic witchcraft with a more Russian heavy focus. And once again, I kind of picked this up thinking it's a great way for me to kind of learn more about my ancestry, what my roots are, and different practices that I could maybe incorporate into my own practice to connect me more to my ancestry. So with her, I must say, one thing that bothers me a little bit about this book is she has not a lot of none so far sources. So she makes statements without backing it up where she has that information from. If that is important to you, then you'll probably be annoyed by that too, but if that's not important to you, then you know, it's fine. I just really like having sources and having further reading material, but of course if you are reading this and if there's any statement made, I do suggest you to cross-reference just to kind of see what other authors say, if that is just her truth or if it is like a general truth, let's say. But yeah, so what I suggest for you to actually do is to get yourself 1 book or maybe 2 books on your own ancestry, and that will kind of help you get into contact with your spirit world, with your ancestry, and it'll help you along the line to be able to connect to the people that have come before you, because if you understand them better, you'll be able to connect to them better. So yeah, that's actually already it for this video. I am linking all of the books in the description box below. I do want to say, obviously, with the Slavic ones, I am going to link them below because I know a lot of people here that are watching are Slavic or have Slavic ancestry, but of course it's in those terms better for you to get your own ancestry books. I also have a Patreon, so if you would like to support this channel and my Patreon, that link will also be in the description box below. And of course I'm also linking everything else, such as my crystal shop. And yeah, so thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you're having a beautiful Samhain or Beltane wherever you are in the world, and let me know what your common practices are for this time of year. I'm really curious to see, and I wish you a happy season, and thank you for watching. Blessed be.